Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Cyrus Podcast. Today I have my good friend, the talented Leah Kirsch. Thank you so much for being here. Well, thank you for allowing me into your place.
You are so welcome. I was thrilled when you asked.
I love this. This is, I think, one of the coolest spaces, just in general, because how you've written on the walls and everywhere, and it's just art. It's an art studio.
It's immersed in art, yes.
And I love it. I love it so much. I want to talk about kind of your life. I want to talk about, before you started, really, were you always creating art? How did you get into this?
This is a good question because I feel like everyone is so right now.
Yeah.
But I love the question when people ask, were you always doing this? Because the answer is I've been making things, anything creative, since I was about 12 years old, and selling them, not just making them.
What?
I was also selling them for profit in middle school with my mom. We were patching ripped jeans because I got in trouble for ripped jeans in middle school. And so I'd customize the patches for girls and add fringe and sell them for $120.
Wait,
and obviously
what?
their parents would pay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't but the parent, that's kind of irrelevant, but because all of my friends also had ripped jeans.
Yeah.
And no one could wear them because it was very cool and trendy. Abercrombie and Fitch just came out with this whole line of ripped jeans, but for some reason in our school, we couldn't wear them. They thought it was messy or sloppy. And so from there, I started making headbands that were in a couple little boutiques in Michigan. I customized headbands with fabric around them and put really nice velvet strip. And I was making flip-flops and crocheting around them, everything. And I have a little book with all my accounting. That's this zebra notebook.
Wait, what? So wait, hold on. So you were 12 years old and you got in trouble and you're okay, we're going to put patches on this. And then
funky fabric.
Yeah.
And so my mom was let's just go to Joann's or wherever we went. It was probably Joann's and just buy my mom was always really funky and encouraging this, which I think it was pivotal for my ability to dream maybe. Because if she said no, that would have stopped everything. That would have stopped the flow, would have stopped the idea that it was possible. So I think that was absolutely huge, and it's really important for how your trajectory of your life goes.
So you had this creative thought process, this creative idea, and your mom was just go run with it.
Yeah, she was helping me sew. She taught me how to sew. I think she actually did most of the labor. And I would just design. I remember the girls it was if you wanted to add on extra fringe, it was an extra $20. But if you just wanted the base, it was $80. And then so if you wanted add-ons, but it all was very natural for me. I was just of course that's how it works. I don't know where I learned it. It was just what,
Do you have entrepreneurs in your family or
No, I mean, my aunt and uncle own a restaurant in New York, but I was never really close with them until I was older, my aunt specifically. I think my dad has an entrepreneurial spirit, but he was always in corporate America. My brother is running his own business very successly, but when I was younger, no, it wasn't learned. It was my nature, if we're talking nature versus nurture. Yeah, it was totally, I think my parents were also just this is so bizarre, but it's kind of working, so we're just gonna let it, she's not doing anything wrong, right? I was actually helping people.
Yeah. So these other kids at your school were hey, we want to get we want pants like yours.
Yeah.
So first of all, you're a trendsetter.
Yes.
Right, that's
the first thing was that I bought these my mom bought these, she was very forward thinking, especially with fashion. And Abercrombie, or I think it was Abercrombie for younger girls, they had these really cool, low-rise, totally ripped jeans. It was the first ever.
Yeah.
And they were pretty expensive. So I bought them and I wore them, and then I got in trouble. And I ended up talking with the principal, and she was look, overall you're right. Because the rule was you can't wear anything past your fingertips. Okay. But the rips were in my knees.
Yeah.
So basically the rules didn't add up, but she was you're right. And I was that's all. I just wanted you to tell me that I'm not that the rules don't add up. So I was like, okay, now we can move forward. So I moved forward and my mom was like, well, we're not letting these pants go to waste, like just wearing them on the weekend. So that's where everything started. And yes, so it was the trend because no one was wearing these ripped jeans. I remember being very nervous to wear the ripped jeans because it was pretty out there at the time, which seems like kind of crazy. But you know, when you're 12 and like you're in middle school, everything, 12, 13, like everything is, I mean, just... especially being a girl.
That age is so hard because you're trying to figure out, like during that age anyways, you're trying to figure out like who you are, like what you're allowed to say and what you can and can't say.
Yeah, and you're like making friends and you just, everyone's kind of competing with each other and like there's this girl thing and this boy thing and this popular thing. And then like, you know, I was also like wanted to be a good student and be respectful. So it was very, like a very sensitive time.
Yeah. So you started making pants.
Yes.
You started designing pants and making pants. So were you choosing the fabrics at that point, or was your mom doing like?
No, I was choosing the fabrics and I was laying it all out. My mom definitely had input, but I mean, I would say, maybe we could say it was a collaborative process. She might have a better memory of it because I don't remember, but I just remember her just like really letting me run free.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then so you're 12 years old. This is kind of starting your starting your creative process as far as creation of something from nothing to something, right? And then it's like also starting this entrepreneurial thing. Like, so talk to me about how like that developed over the last, I don't know, 15 years.
So from there, I was just a normal girl. No, I was doing all of those things, right? Like selling, like always busy, always wanted to make stuff. I was always into clothes, always. And again, my mom really encouraging me to just like wear funky things and express myself, and nothing was weird. It was just, it was very, again, pivotal for who I am today, which I'm so lucky that was the case. But, you know, as you grow up, people tell you these stories, don't do this, don't follow your dreams, you're not going to make enough money. That was a huge one I always heard because I always wanted to open up a boutique in New York because I loved clothes. Yeah. You're not going to make enough money. There's no money in that industry, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, like making money was a big factor for me also. Yeah. That's something people are like, I don't need to make money. Like it was always important to me. Yeah. It wasn't the only thing, but it was one of the things. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to business school. Everyone encouraged me to go to business school. In business school, I interned at Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Monique Lhuillier, Harper's Bazaar, and another PR company.
Little small brands.
Yeah, just like maybe you've heard of them. Yeah. And it was really fun, but I got into PR. And I could never get out of PR and go into the numbers game, which I wanted to go into some sort of like numbers, like finance, because I studied finance. Yeah. And I could never get out of PR. Once you're in PR, you're kind of just like pegged as a PR girl in New York, which is cool and fun, but it was, again, really hard to make a lot of money. Like you're really making like not a lot of money a year. Yeah. And so then summer to my senior year, I was like, well, I'm gonna just like teach myself. Well, I was teaching myself graphic design the whole way, but summer to my senior year, I was like, I'm gonna make some t-shirts, some graphic tees, build myself a website. Like Shopify just came out. This was like, you know, this was before, this was actually right when Instagram was starting, which was like 2010 or 2000. No, when did Instagram start?
Probably 2000. Yeah, 2000, probably 11, I think it was 10, somewhere around there. Like, is when it started getting big or,
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna use social media because I was posting a lot of outfits. Yeah. And so yeah, I built myself a website. I had a lot of cool, very unique looking friends, all women. And we had a photo shoot, posted pictures, gave everyone shirts, like doing the influencing thing before it was a thing. Yeah. And just blasted, like guerrilla marketing, right? Give everyone a shirt, and sales started to come in. I had someone running ads on Facebook Marketplace or on Facebook ads when it was very different. There was like a black market for Facebook ads, which like no one talks about because it's the black market for Facebook ads. Anyway, and that really got a lot of traction, and I started selling, and I was like, okay, cool. Like this is kind of working. And then one thing led to the next, and then it just plummeted, and I was like, not making any money. Like, not making any money, meaning I was in like loads of debt, like 30 grand of debt. Yeah. And then I started customizing the Air Force Ones, which was my next kind of like brought me back up. did an event with Nike, and that's when the writing thing really, I was like, okay, I was too like clogged up in my mind with like being on a ton of Adderall, drinking a lot, partying a lot in New York City.
Yeah.
I wasn't like able to, I was just really stifled by all of the like substances.
Yeah.
Which is such a real thing that I don't think people talk about enough. Because I think I could have started this journey a lot sooner if I wasn't doing all of that.
Yeah.
But again, everyone's story is their story, and you do, like, I really learned a real lesson from that, which was obviously important for me.
Do you think like, I mean, how did you realize that? I guess, like, what was the trigger that made you realize like that realization that there's a block somewhere?
I was really struggling. Like, and there was, there's this balance between ego and intuition. And my ego was like, no, keep making it, keep doing it, keep taking the Adderall. Like, you're so close, you're almost there. And then I was like, my intuition was like, this isn't working. Like, I was almost there so many times. And then I was just like tired, or like Adderall hungover, or like I just couldn't do it. And so I was like, okay, I just need to stop. So I closed down the business completely, which was so hard for my ego.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my God, I failed. This is what everyone talks about. Like, but after I did it, I was like, oh my gosh, I can finally.
It's like breathe.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I can finally just like give up this lifestyle that I've been trying to do for so long. And like, you're young and you don't know, people like ask questions, get help. It's like, I don't even know the questions to ask. My question was like, what do I do? Like, and they're just keep working. I'm like, okay, on what? Like, I had like someone who's helping me a lot. It's like, just keep working, keep creating ideas. And I was like, that's so vague.
Yeah.
But of course I kept a lot of like the Adderall stuff and the drinking and the partying very low. Like, I wasn't telling anyone about it. So that would have been advice I think someone would have given me if I was being honest, but there was a lot of shame involved around it. Anyway, so I closed down the business, and this is a really good part of the story because I know this is a little bit long-winded. It's coming to an end. But I came to LA, moved in with my mom, and I was just like, okay, like I'm just giving it up. Like, I'm giving, like, okay, it was really hard for me. Took another job, and that was for a startup. And then I ran into this girl on Abbott Kinney, and I didn't know who she was. She was like, oh my God, Leah Kirsch. And I was like, hi. I was like, do we know each other? And she's like, I just follow you on Instagram. And she's like, she said, she like spoke for like the women or the community. And she was like, we're all so sad to see you stop what you're doing because you made such an impact in our lives. Or she said something like that. And the way she said it and the conversation we had changed everything. I was like, oh, okay, there was actually something there. It wasn't just me, I don't know, you kind of just feel like sometimes too much freedom isn't a good thing. And I was just like frolicking around in New York, just trying to figure it out.
And it's like, I think just in general, like as entrepreneurs, as creators, like you have this thought process where like, are you really doing it? Yeah. Because a lot of the times it feels like on a daily basis, we're like, okay, like what's next? We got to figure it out and create and like, and then it's like, but like, am I really doing it? Yeah. And then I think it's those moments that like you hear from somebody like that says like, you've made a difference. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah. And a part of the thing is like, do people really care? I know everyone's like, you should do it for yourself. Of course I'm doing it for myself, but I'm also doing this for other people so that when they walk in here, they can be excited and they can feel better. And then the art that they have on their wall can maybe change their day. Like, it really does make a difference. Like I know that you definitely believe in that. So I was like, oh, like people care. Like there were people, and now people are a little bit sad that, it just felt like there was a bigger purpose. Yeah. Anyway, then COVID hit. And then I was like, okay, everything that I do from this point on, I'm only going to do stuff I absolutely love that really feels good in my heart, like art stuff, like, things I create, and that I would either wear, hang in my own house. Cause there is a point where when you're running a business, you're like, I need to make things that are going to sell. Yep. But it's different when you're, it depends on what kind of business you're running, right? Take everything with a grain of salt. The business that I'm now running I'm making art from my heart, and the thing that sets all of this apart is the uniqueness that I have inside of me. 100%. And people, that's what people resonate with, because they're like, oh, this is new, I've never seen this before.
Yep.
Like, how do you, it's just like, I don't know, it came from my head. Like it, but instead of thinking, oh, well, people like the $2 bills, it's not that anymore. It's like, oh, well, this story is from my grandfather, and that for some reason speaks to me. And because it speaks to me, it will like speak to other people.
It's so interesting. I had this conversation last night with one of the girls I used to coach in soccer, and she was talking about this concept of like, you know, she's about to graduate from college. She's trying to figure out her life. She's like stressing out because she's supposed to be, what's her career, yada yada. And I said this, and it's this thought process where like our whole lives we're like told, this is how you need to live, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. And everybody wants you to live how they expect you to live. Mm-hmm. But then the people that, and I believe like everybody is an artist in whatever they're doing, the people that truly do what they love and what brings them joy, that's true art, right? Not what everybody else expects of them. Then what happens is people are, they're focused when they go and they start doing their own thing and they start creating their own stuff for them. Everybody starts looking at them and like, is like, wait a second, I want to be like that, right? And it's like you are allowing people to understand that it's okay to be yourself.
And that is,
which is so cool.
That I think is the feeling that people are so attracted to, because there is nothing more. I mean, it's one of the best feelings in the world to just be yourself and be loved and be accepted. And I think that if everyone was just, it's so cliche, but if everyone was just kind to everyone when they're themselves, just kind to everyone, and everyone was being themselves, it would just be a really peaceful place.
Oh, 100%.
Because the reason people get like mean and cold is because when they are in a vulnerable state and they're themselves and then they get knocked down, it wounds you so hard and so deep. And then you never want to go to that place again because it hurts so much.
Well, that's what they say. It's insecurities, right? Yeah. Like people are mean and people are like, you know, cold or whatever because of their own insecurities. You know, it's the same thing. Like we talk about like I had the same exact conversation last night where I was like, look, like who creates your box? Like you're letting other people create the box that you're living in versus like, why don't you create your own box? And everybody else, like they might not agree with your box, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
I think when people, because people used to say that to me, but I would be really confused by that. For me, what really speaks to me, and maybe when you're talking to, I know because you do the coaching, and I'm sure a lot of those, a lot of people in general reach out to you, but it really helps when you give examples. Like, what does that mean, create your box? Like for me, it was like the box, like, oh, brick and mortar stores are out. Don't do that. Yeah. And I was like feeling like, just like upset, and I couldn't figure it out. And then the second I opened the brick and mortar store, like boom, you know? So that would be an example of like, who's creating this box? Like, because you don't realize how many things are just like shoveled into your head 100%. All day. And then when you get older, you really do, I mean, there's so many reasons why, but you lose kind of like your child, like ambitions and your dreams because you become an adult and you realize, oh, there's like actually like a lot to lose. And like, I have to make money and I have to pay my bills. Yeah. So, but you know, thinking outside the box is like, who's creating this box? Like things you see, your family is saying these things like, don't make a brick and mortar, like, you know, don't do this. It's dead. In person is dead. Online is everything. I'm like, I'm sorry. People love coming into stores. Yeah. And I don't think they ever will. The second people stop coming into stores and doing everything virtually is the day the world will see like darkness, like true darkness, like the apocalypse. That will be the saddest day. Yeah. Like people need to connect.
Well, that's the essence of human nature.
Yes, it really connection. Is. Yeah.
Like that's the whole, like, and I think that's really, I actually love that. And I like the fact that that's what you're trying to curate is really human connection over everything else.
Yes. And the way that where it all starts is from everyone's own individual self. And that's what I think people are trying to say with all this like self-care and all this like things, which is like totally misconstrued in my opinion. But like when you can connect with yourself, like with a piece of art, or like, oh, that reminds me of a song from my childhood and makes me feel good. And then you can go out and then you can have a really nice conversation with someone. And then you go home and you're like, like, I'm like, hey Max, like I had such a nice conversation, and then you connect over that, and then like it spreads, and like I think that's kind of the essence of like what I want my art to do is like, you know, like create a conversation that starts with yourself and then goes to other people. Like, what if it all works out? Like, oh my God, what a nice thought.
Yeah.
And then you come, I mean, so many people come to the store like, I don't know what it is, but it's just like so nice in here. It's like so happy. You're such a happy person. And I'm just like, yeah, that's so nice, because I hope when you walk out of here, you can just like spread that a little bit more.
Yeah, like it's the same thing. It's that butterfly effect, right? Like, can we positively impact one person on a daily basis, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's right. What we do. Okay. You know, but it's so important, and part of, you know, why I personally love your art and what you do is because of that, right? It's a simple concept.
It's so simple.
It's a simple concept.
Yeah.
But you're invoking thought. And when you invoke thought, then hopefully that invokes conversation.
But invoke like positive thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why words we use are so important, because it actually changes the makeup of of our brain, which is the neuroplasticity of our brain. And so it can slowly over time, when you read positive words and read affirmations, it changes the way you think, which changes your behaviors, which changes your life.
Yep.
And that's why words are so important. Like, you should never say no problem to someone if they say thank you. You should say you're welcome, because no problem is no and problem. So when someone's running late, you just say take your time. You don't say no rush, because I'm like, oh my God, rush. It's so subconscious. Yeah. That's why it's like, what if it all works out? Or like your turn, or just like you're beautiful. It's such a simple concept that, I mean, a lot of the time simple things are just forgotten because people like to complicate things, because we're very complicated, you know, human beings that love simulation.
Like, it's a simple concept, but it's hard to put into action, right? Because it does really take choice in everything that you're doing. You have to make the choice to, you know, I had a coach, one of the best things that a coach ever told me when I was playing soccer, pissed me off when he did it, was I played goalkeeper, right? So I kept missing the ball. And I was like, stupid Cyrus, you're such an idiot, blah, 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 blah. Like, yada, like, come on, you know? And I'm like getting pissed off. And my coach goes, hey, come here. It's like, oh, great. Like, I know I missed it 20 times. You don't need to tell me again, right. You know what I mean? And he goes, all right, from now on, when you make a mistake, I want you to clap and say, great job, Cyrus. And I was like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so stupid. In my mind, I'm like, I'm not going to do this. And so, of course, I miss one and I don't do it. And he goes, hey, what are you supposed to do? I was like, great job, Cyrus. You know, like this. And then I start doing it. And then all of a sudden, it's like, now I got out of my own way, right? That mental block that was this like, oh, you can't.
Because you just keep pushing yourself down, and
it's a negative loop from hell.
You're not going to do better down here.
Exactly.
So even if you're like at least missing the ball, at least you're positivity, and then you have the option to go up. But if you're just like, oh, this sucks, then you're just going to keep going that way.
Exactly. And it relieves that mental block and it lightens your thought process up to be able to like, you know, in life, to create, in business, to solve issues, right? To solve problems. And in football and soccer, it was to be able to let me do what I do, which is react, right? Like it's muscle memory at that point. But when you start building these mental blocks from literal language that you're saying, because your mind, you know, I talk about it, it's like you have a friend. Would you say what you say to yourself to your friend?
Yep, exactly. That's always such a good example. Or parents to their kids.
Yeah. It's like most of the time we would not talk to our friends like that.
Like if a friend has like a zit, or if she's like she's like feels bad about her body, or those are examples that I just had a conversation with some girlfriends. And I was like, if anyone that I wouldn't even like look at it. But if I have like a pimple on my face, I'm like, oh my God, it's literally the end of the world. Like my day is ruined. Like I'm like, what is this?
It's like this, we're like so much harder on ourselves when like, if we give ourselves some grace, right? Like, or I had another conversation with another client of mine that was like, she was like, you know, I used to be this way. And I was like, do you compare yourself with everybody that you walk by? And she's like, I mean, no, not always. I said, so why are you comparing yourself to like 5 years ago? You're not that person anymore. You've had different experiences. You've had different life. Like, yes, that was you at some point, but like we can't continue to compare ourselves because comparison is a thief of joy, right? And it's this whole thought process of like this self-love that like, which like, again, going back to your art, going back to, I mean, the mirror I have in my house,
oh yeah,
you are beautiful, right? Like,
you're so lucky.
Yeah. like that is, you know, was for my fiance. Like that's what it, like she loves that because every day she looks at that, you know what I mean?
And it really makes a difference. I put a mirror in my bathroom that says, "You look great."
Yep.
And every time I stepped out of the shower, I was like, it was the first thought, and then it interrupts the old pattern of thinking, and
exactly.
then it rewires your brain, the neuroplasticity, because it's constantly moving and changing. So then you're just like, oh, you look in a mirror, and you're just like, oh, you don't have a second to like start like bashing, right? That's why it was like the goal is like clap, clap, you're doing great. It just interrupted that, and then from there you can go up.
Exactly, it's that reminder, right? Because if not, then we're relying on ourselves to remind ourselves when like, can we give, you know, it's for instance, when I want to remember something at my office, I might put a certain color Post-it on my desk just because I want that. When I see that, I'm like, oh, pink Post-it, oh, it means I need to call this person, right? Like
exactly
little reminders that help a lot. So we got off track here. I'm gonna bring us all the way back here. You closed your store. You did your thing with Nike, and then
we'll reverse,
moved
but yeah,
here.
Nike.
Okay, Nike.
Yeah.
Closed your store. Moved here, and then talk to me what happened here that got you to where we're at now.
So I took another job, and that was about a month. COVID hit, and I was like, okay, they were like, we're not going to do this anymore. I was like, okay, thank God, because that was like the worst month of my life. I was like, okay, I can't do the working for other people thing. So I was like, got that out of the way, figured that out. I tried, like I really tried. It wasn't a corporate job, but also not my style. Anyway, then I started, I already had like the supply chain down for making clothes.
Yeah.
For tie-dyeing, my website was still up and running. I still was paying for, you know, emailing, newsletters, my domains were up. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like make a sweatshirt, something that's cool. And then I made like one, and then I made like 10, and then I just took a picture. It was a selfie that I set up that no one even took of me. It was just like in this bright blue. It was called Jade. And I sold like, I don't know, like 500 of them in a month. And they didn't even have tags in them. I didn't even have tags.
Wow.
I was just tearing out the you know, white label tag because no one could get white clothes because they were all out. So I knew a place to get white clothes to tie-dye. Like, this was when also tie-dye was happening, comfy clothes were happening, COVID was happening, right? All of this. And so I was like, okay, this is cool. So like I bought some tags, and I was like, no. And then everyone was like, well, start doing this. And I was like, no, this is not how this works. Everything I'm gonna do is gonna be extremely intentional because now my mind is clear. I like, you know, basically, I don't want to say like sobered up because I was still drinking here and there, but like cleaned myself up, sobered up, and my mind was very clear. And I was like, I'm going to do all of this different. But like it came right back into my lap. I was like, okay, obviously this is for me. Like I did it like so great. I closed the business down so gracefully, so humbly. I learned the lesson that I was supposed to learn. It was extremely difficult. It was probably one of the hardest things to do. I mean, it just felt like a blow, right?
Yeah. It's because it feels like a
a
failure, but it's not.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah.
Yeah. And my grandma, I remember she was like, but aren't you giving up on your dream? And I was like, this isn't my dream. Like I'm fucking miserable. Like I'm so unhappy.
Yeah.
Like maybe like no one can see it and know it, but like it's like, and I was like, and I'm like so broke. Like what about this is fun? I wasn't even making stuff.
Yeah.
I was just like wasting money trying things. But I think it's important to go through that. But like I could have cut like 4 years of that out, 3 maybe. Anyway.
But it's all part of the process, right?
Like, which was like very, very difficult. And a lot of people, it's really hard to come out of debt. Like you have to be in a very privileged place to get out of debt. And I was very privileged just to come here to LA with my mom, not pay rent like that. You know, I was already like a step ahead. Like which is like a hard thing to say, and I did not take it for granted. But, you know, for like people watching, I think it's very important to know that like, it's really hard to do if you don't even have any of that. And I didn't, but you know, I never took advantage of that before. And so then I was like, okay, like I'm basically out of options. Yeah. So I sold everything. I sold like my stapler, my printer paper, my pencils, scissors, everything. And I was like, okay, got myself out of debt. I had to take a loan from someone else that I paid back interest free, but I had like $7,000 positive for the first time ever. I was like, whoa. This is a lot of money. Yeah. It's not a lot of money, really. But basically, I felt like I was in a good place. So I came here, and then everything I was doing slowly, intentionally, and just figuring out my flow in the creative process and like the life of my products, which was really important for me to figure out. Because everyone was like, buy inventory, like buy all this inventory. I was like, I don't need to buy inventory because the life of my products is low, right? It goes like this. It has this like pretty decent peak. Long peak, but then it dips and it's done, which for me, I found out I really love that, which is why I love like new art projects.
Because you can create quickly.
It's just new and quick, and I just love making new stuff. It stimulates me, it gets me going, I'm excited, and then when it's over, I'm just like, done. I never need to see that again. Like, because my heart goes into it, and I just exhaust it. And I think that was like what Max, the issue he had with this, he was like, but I was like, maybe in a week I'm gonna like hate this and I can never see it again. He's like, well, you need to sell things. I'm like, they need a new home. Like I'm done with them. They need a new home. If someone wants to pay however much, amazing. But like, let's move on to the next project. Yeah. So that was very important. Anyway, and then someone asked me to make a tire cover for them, back to, you know, moving back here and how this all got started. And they're like, can you customize the tire cover for my daughter for her 16th birthday? And I was like, it was the first project I did that wasn't the shoes that had writing on it. And I was like, my mom was like, you've never done that before. You have no idea how to do that. I was like, I know, but Google probably knows how to steal a tire cover. So and Blick, I was like, I'm going to go ask them a million questions. Yeah. And maybe bring them some chocolate if they want, like.
We're going to figure this out.
Yeah. So I was like, but I'm not saying no. And so I was like, okay, it's $300, which I thought was like astronomical. And she was like, okay, I'll Venmo you right now. I was like, oh, okay. And then it just all happened, and I made this amazing video. And then someone was like, can you customize this for me? Can you customize this for me? And I was like, what? I was like, okay. Again, slowing down and being like, okay, what's happening here? The writing thing is like being loved. The tie-dye thing is being loved. Everything I'm doing is like slower with intention. And I'm like taking a step back to recognize instead of being like, what do people want?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Which is like also was pretty important for me to learn. And I think
which is like a whole nother stressor that comes in that is so unnecessary.
And I find myself doing it now, like when I'm making this new project, I'm like, well, what will people want to hang in their home? I'm like, what am I doing? Like, stop. Because the second I start doing that is the second it just falls apart. Yep. Because instead of I'm going into this like desperate selling business, which works for some businesses. But for mine, it doesn't work. And so instead I'm just like going into this like, what do I love? Because people are buying my art because of me. Yep. And 100%. That's why people buy art from artists, is mostly because of the story and the artist. Exactly. And obviously they like the style, but the style is the artist. So it comes like very full circle. Yeah. Anyway, so I was like, okay. And then I was still working out of my mom's condo for a while. And then she was like, basically she had like a very nice meltdown. She was like, you gotta get the fuck out of here. And I was like, okay. I was like, fair. Like there's shirts everywhere. I mean, I was doing like pretty decent volume of clothes, right? Like I was selling quite a bit of stuff, and we just got caught up in it. Like there were shirts like laid over the couch. Like it was a pretty, good sized condo, but it was that's just like not how everywhere. Anyone. Yeah, it was everywhere. There were tags everywhere. There were sewing machines. Like she started sewing it. It was just like, but it was like grassroots story, like how it should have been like 6 years, 7 years before then. And I was like, okay. I actually can't afford to get a spot. I was like, I'm gonna get a small spot close by, because everyone's like, go downtown. And I'm like, I'm not driving downtown. I love the West Side. I love being close. That's the way I need to do this.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you're going to pay more. I'm like, I know. Okay. Again, like my decision, not asking too much advice, which some people need a lot of advice. Like I don't need a lot of advice. I need to ask like 3 people.
Creating your own rules.
Yes. Again, it's like making my own box.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was paying $1,700 for 300 square feet, which is astronomical. But guess what? I made so many things in that little spot, and we grew so fast. That's when I got verified on Instagram before you could pay for it. We got so much press. Vogue wrote us up. Teen Vogue wrote us up. I mean, GQ, AOC wore the masks. Everyone was wearing the stuff.
Yeah.
And it was so organic. I did pay for some press, but the press that mattered was the organic press, which is so ironic because you're like, anyway, that's a whole thing. But it was all out of that. It was across the street there. And then I made friends with my landlord, and I was like, oh my God, he's gonna yell at me because like I'm running a business here. And it was just like, so it was like, again, there's always things that you're gonna be stressed out about. It's like part of the game. It's part of life game. And he was like, hey, so I actually told him what I was doing. Cause again, I was like, I'm gonna be intentional with everything. I'm not gonna like cut corners. I'm not gonna be sneaky. Cause I was always trying to do that in New York. Like, you know, your 20s in New York, you're like, you have to kind of to survive. But I ended up telling him, I was like, is it cool? Because if it's not, like, I'm gonna find another spot. He's like, oh, I actually have a huge embroidery business in Inglewood. I was like, sweet. I was like, is that your way of like saying it's okay? So he didn't like say it was okay, but he knew, which was important to me, to be honest. And then he came to me one day and he left me a message, a voicemail, and he was like, hey, Leah, can you call me back? I need to talk to you about something. And I was like, this is it. This is it. This is where it all crumbles, right? Because now you have this fear that everything's gonna crumble. And he's like, are you interested in going in on a spot together and you can pay less rent and have more space? And I was like, okay.
Wait a second.
I was like, what's the catch? And I was like, obviously that answer is yes. And I was like, but I'm not going downtown LA. Yeah. I'm not going down there. It's just not where I want to be. Yeah. But he loves the West Side. He actually also lives in that building. Oh. And he's like, I want to live and I was like, my mom, she's like, I've never seen so many things work out for someone in such a short period of time. And I was like, I think like this means I'm like very aligned with what I'm supposed to be doing.
I think that's like, I think there's something that we don't understand about, and we as in like the human race doesn't understand yet or hasn't got on to yet is like, I truly believe as you put out positive energy, like you get into this flow. Yeah. And when you're in this flow, because you're putting out so much positive energy, like things start working how they're supposed to work, right? Yeah. Like, positive energy attracts positive energy. Right. However you want to say it, like I believe that wholeheartedly. And
there's still things that were happening that weren't like amazing and perfect, right?
Correct.
There was still like I was like hitting heads. I was, but those aren't the things that I'm sharing right now for the sake of time.
But also like no matter what in life, like you're always gonna have ups and downs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like no matter what. Yeah. Like no matter what you're doing, it's impossible for it to be 100% good.
Right.
But it's all perspective at the end of the day.
Right. And I do think it's important to like acknowledge that when everything is going right, the bad things and the negative things, they still exist, but it's how you deal with them and like you have to weigh them. Yep. Like, okay, this is a little bit challenging, but like what's the full picture here? Yeah. So like there were like little things here and there, but still everything was really going my way. And then his name is Tizak, he found this space. And I was like, literally across the street, we walked things over. 1770.
What?
We were walking boxes over and like racks. Like obviously we did carloads, but and again, then everyone, like few people, then some of my extended family was like, well, she's gonna open a store, but brick and mortar is dead. It's COVID, it's this. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, low rent, perfect time to open a store. I need a studio. I've always wanted a store. Like, let me go back to my roots and like who I am as a person. Yeah. And also, what's the worst that's gonna happen? That's why failing is really important, because when you fail and you feel like you hit rock bottom, it's kind of like, depends. Again, take this with a grain of salt. It's like not that bad. Yeah. Your ego and like how you think people are gonna look at you, the thought of that is way worse than when it happens.
100%.
Because when I wrote that letter posting on Instagram, I was like drunk in the airport and I was like living my best life. And I was like, sorry guys, like I'm dipping the fuck out of here because this shit is stressful. I'm in a lot of debt. Everyone was like, whoa, go you. And I was like free. Yeah. So now, and every time I get that, like this thought right now, I'm like, oh, well, what if that doesn't work out? What's gonna happen? you know, and then I'm just like, but I did it once.
Yeah.
And then you're like way less afraid. And it's also like, spin it as being cool. Like, the art's done. I want something cooler. Like, I'll do that if I ever have to
that's the
you know?
PR move.
Yeah, that's the PR move. It's like, but it kind of, anyway. So I came here and I was with Tizak and I was feeling so just grateful for everything working out in my favor. And I was like, also just like, is something going to go wrong, right? Because you want to like stay grounded and be realistic constantly.
Yeah.
The second you lose that is when life takes you and sweeps you, because God is always trying to like make sure that you stay humble.
Yep.
That's my experience.
I feel that.
I was like, Tizak, I know we started the search together, but I really need this store. It's always been my dream to have a storefront. My mom like coached, again, my mom was like back in the picture. She like was coaching me through. She's like, just be honest with him and tell him.
Yep.
And she's like, and it will show his true colors and it will show if it's right for you. And I was like, okay, you're right. That's all you can do.
Yep.
So I told him, he was like, oh yeah, no problem. I was like, I was just like, I mean, thinking about it is like so surreal because I was like, wow, this is my dream, you know? And so there was a couple of hiccups with the landlords because they're like, why isn't Tizak involved? Are you sure you can pay your bills? You're just a girl. Like there's just like a bunch of men, no offense to men, but like old white men. And then when I got the store, which was originally supposed to be just a studio space, then I put up the wall and I was like, look, it can't be that hard to run a store. Like you have a checkout system, you pay your bills, you keep it clean, and you have inventory. Okay. I can do those things. It sounds like pretty basic. It sounds like keeping a kitchen stock. Okay. It sounds like, okay. Right? Like I've done crazier things. And then when I was here, my friend asked me to make him a piece of art, and I'd made the art for free. He paid for all the supplies, and I was like, pay for the videographer and make a really nice video for me. That's all. You don't have to pay me. Yeah. Huge piece of art. You should have paid me. And anyway, I really am happy that happened.
Thought I was going to get a tip or something.
Or whatever. Anyway, he bought me a bunch of food. He like would always bring me lunch. Really, really nice guy. I'm not going to say his name though. And then we made this beautiful video and I was like, okay, like this could be like my thing. Yeah. And then someone else asked me to make a piece of art, which again was like $600. The prices have now like maybe
a lot more.
Like 6 times more.
Yeah.
And then this other guy was like, oh, well, I want a piece of art for my girlfriend, but I need it in like 3 days. And I was like, okay, well, that's going to cost you. And so then I like jacked the price for a rush fee. It was like, again, just like the pants in the beginning, like you want fringe? Okay, it's going to cost you. So then I made a piece of art and it was the first piece I sold for $1,500. And he was like, yeah, no problem. It's like such cool art. I was like, oh.
You're like, wait a second, there's a concept.
Yeah, and I was like doing the thing, I was like going back, slowing down, seeing what's happening and being like, okay, what is happening? People love this. It's pretty simple. It's costing me this, you know? And then long story long, we're here now and I have slowly transitioned from the clothing store being a traditional clothing store to now almost being a full gallery.
And I love it.
Thanks.
I love all of that. You know, it's like, especially because I'm seeing like the end of this transition kind of happening like very closely. It's really cool. Like it's really cool because of so many different things, but going back to like, first of all, your mom's a badass.
Yeah, she really is.
Like,
she's the coolest.
Like, it's very apparent to me, like without your mom's support, like you would not be able to be here.
Yeah.
And that piece of advice that she gave to you about, you said Tizak, to like just be honest. Yeah. And like, hey, like, yeah. Because you can only control what you control.
Exactly.
Like, that's it. Like everything else is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so like, it's just so cool to see that transformation and then see like where you're at and see it through your art and like your growth. I think it's so amazing. Like, it's so cool. So talk to me about that though. Like, what's next? Like, we're transitioning this space, right?
Yes. So right here, I have not looked in that camera once. Right here, this is not my typical style of lettering. Yeah. And so right now is actually a very interesting time because I've had so much success with this very typical, or this very kind of my, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like font, like specific style, right?
Specific style, yeah. And it's been very successful, but now I'm kind of trying some new things. Yeah. Which, and again, just like I think it's a green Navy SEAL quote, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Like, I'm going to put this up and just like, I'm just going to see how I feel.
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to like, I've really like stepped into this artist role, which still feels a little uncomfortable because I don't identify as an artist. I identify as like a businesswoman.
Yeah. I love
who
that.
is very creative and loves clothes. But I'm just like, just slowly going and like getting rid of the clothing rack makes me very nervous. Like doing these things that are what I know. So what I'm doing now is kind of really stepping into like trying new things and seeing what works for me and how I feel about it. Like, okay, do I like this? Does this, because sometimes I look at this and I'm like, oh my God, like it needs to be straight. Why are there so many drips? It's giving me so much anxiety. Because like the words are, all the letters are one by one. They're very perfect. The rows are, they're, even though it's like kind of like artistic and funky, in my mind, it's very clean.
Yeah.
And this is like, what is going on? This is so scattered. This like kind of makes me feel like
but
nervous.
This is how you, but that's art, right? Like this is how you like specifically this piece, and the fun thing is everybody that's listening on audio is going to be like, what is this piece?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But like specifically, like for me, like that's how you feel when you're stressing out. Mm-hmm. And then that thought process of what if it all works is like, that calming thought process. Right.
Right. Which goes back to the words.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
So yeah, I might still like hate this and do something else. And I started like kind of playing with shadows and outlines and smaller pieces. And I'm going to go into frames. And I really want to step into like this more like fine art. I know you and Max were having a conversation about that, and like a little bit higher end. But I still want to make like art for people. I really do, because that is like in my heart. I want people to be able to afford art and have art. That doesn't mean I'm not going to have really expensive pieces, but I still want to, and I don't like love prints. I don't know. They just like feel meh. Like I love the texture of it. Yeah. I love knowing that like I was sitting there and I made this and this person now has this. Like it feels so intentional to me. Maybe in like 5-10 years, I'm going to be like, roll with the prints. That's sweet. But right now I don't know. So yeah, I'm just like playing around, and I want to just keep art like for the people. I want them to be able to, I think Keith Haring was like, I'm making art for people. Or art for everyone, I think was one of his slogans. But I want to make buying art for everyone. He never like did the buying art for everyone. I mean, he had a very short stint because of AIDS and everything that happened in the 80s. But I want people to feel like they can buy art and they can be a part of this world. Obviously what they're buying is going to be a smaller piece, but still impactful and still like part of the brand. Because, a lot of those people are like what brought me here today. Like I still have girls who were like buying like this Because I Can shirt, and now they're like buying mirrors, and they're like still there, like supporting, like they're down, they're like riders, like real day ones, So that's crazy to be.
That's so cool.
Like, I never want to like leave them out.
It's your people growing with you.
Yeah, and like they like that girl on the street, like, and all the girls, like I would have never started the brand back up if she didn't say, And so, I mean, I know people are like always thanking their fans, but it's true. Like, this would be nothing if people weren't buying stuff. Yeah. Like I would just be, So anyway, something to.
You're really stepping into the art of being like authentically you and just continue to create, which I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. Where do people find you if they want to connect with you?
Find me on Instagram, Leah Kirsch.
How do you spell that?
LeahKirsch.
Thank you so much. And I have one more question.
Oh, yeah.
If someone is in the shoes that you were in when you had to close your business down, what advice would you give them?
I would say definitely do it. Because there is no better lesson than going through that. It's unteachable.
Yeah.
And you can't just read quotes and listen to interviews about it. You have to go through it, which is so hard. But I finally understand all those things, like failing is the best lesson. I was like, I don't understand. That sounds so stupid. But when you go through it, you're just like, whoa. Because now again, depends on the failure. Like it depends on what your rock bottom is, but you will never forget it. So go through it and like do it gracefully, do it humbly, do it honestly, and just move forward after that.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.